Amidst dark and imposing walls, covered in delicate paintings that have withstood the test of time, each stone of Pompeii seems to hold a story waiting to be revealed. Now, centuries after being buried by one of the most devastating eruptions in history, the city is once again surprising the world. Researchers have begun a new and extensive phase of excavations in the ancient Roman center, and all eyes are on one specific point: the mysterious Insula X, an area that, even after decades of study, still holds secrets capable of rewriting what we know about the past. And before we continue, if you enjoy this type of content, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment letting us know what you think of these discoveries. This really helps the channel to continue bringing you stories like this. Insula X quickly became one of the most intriguing sites in Pompeii. Among the most curious finds is an unusual dark room where two beds were discovered. A simple space, but full of mystery. Who lived there? What was the function of that room? These questions still don't have definitive answers, but the remains found offer valuable clues about daily life moments before the tragedy. Pompeii, as we know, was destroyed by the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 AD. The city was covered in ash, rocks, and extremely hot gases, an event that killed thousands of people but at the same time preserved buildings, objects, and even the last moments of its inhabitants. Rediscovered in the 18th century, it revealed to the world an incredibly detailed portrait of life in the Roman Empire. Before its destruction, Pompeii had already undergone several transformations. Influenced by different cultures, it ended up being completely Romanized, with Latin replacing the ancient local language and profound changes in its social structure. Internal conflicts, such as the famous brawl in the amphitheater and even a major earthquake that shook the city years before the eruption, already indicated that something was wrong. But what makes Pompeii so fascinating is not just its destruction, but everything that was preserved. Among the most curious finds is a fresco over 2,000 years old that caught attention for resembling something extremely familiar, a kind of pizza. Of course, not as we know it today. No tomatoes or mozzarella. In fact, it is a type of flatbread, probably a focaccia, topped with fruits such as pomegranate and possibly dates. This detail raises an interesting question. Tomatoes only arrived in Europe after the discovery of the Americas, more than 1,500 years after the creation of this painting. And mozzarella, traditionally made with buffalo milk, was also not part of that reality. Even more intriguing is the presence of a fruit that many interpreted as a pineapple, something impossible for the time since Europeans only came into contact with it centuries later. This apparent inconsistency has generated debate among experts, who believe that the fruit may have been misinterpreted or represent something different. In any case, the fresco reveals much more than just food. It shows cultural habits, rituals, and even social practices. Alongside the bread, wine, dried fruits, and decorative elements appear, suggesting a banquet or even a ritual offering. This type of representation may be linked to the Greek concept of zinaya, a tradition of hospitality in which food was offered as a symbol of welcome. In Pompeii, these images were common and indicate a strong cultural influence that spanned different regions of the ancient world. But the discoveries don't stop there. The excavations also revealed something surprising, a veritable construction site preserved over time. Tools, bricks, organized tiles, and large quantities of building materials indicate that the city was in constant transformation until its final days. One of the most impressive aspects is the technique used by the Romans to produce cement. Contrary to what was long believed, they used a method called hot mix, combining quicklime with volcanic ash and adding water shortly before use. This kept the mixture heated, speeding up the drying process and making the constructions extremely resistant. This technique, studied with the collaboration of modern scientists, helps explain why so many Roman structures have withstood the test of time. And Pompeii is one of the greatest examples of this. But not everything in Pompeii is about innovation. Many of the most recent discoveries reveal the more human and more tragic side of the story. In one of the excavated areas, 3 skeletons were found near a furnace, 2 women and a small child. Everything indicates that they were trying to protect themselves from the rain of stones when the ceiling collapsed. Elsewhere, charred remains of a bed mark the spot where someone died unable to escape. These are silent but extremely powerful details that reveal the desperation experienced in those final moments. Estimates suggest that thousands of people died during the eruption, and to this day, approximately 1,300 to 2,500 bodies have been found. Some studies indicate that seismic tremors, which occurred before the peak of the eruption, also contributed to the deaths, collapsing structures even before the arrival of the pyroclastic flows. Among the structures discovered is the lararium, a domestic sanctuary where inhabitants performed rituals and made offerings to the gods. Decorated with stucco serpents, symbols of protection and prosperity, this space functioned as a point of connection between the human and divine worlds. These details show how deeply religion was integrated into daily life. Each house had its own sacred space, reinforcing the importance of spirituality in the lives of the Pompeians. And perhaps one of the most impressive recent discoveries is the so-called Black Hall, a luxurious banquet hall, about 15 meters long, decorated with extremely sophisticated frescoes. The dark walls, probably designed to hide smoke stains from the lamps, they are covered with mythological scenes related to the Trojan War. Among the figures depicted are Cassandra, known for predicting the future but never being believed, and Apollo, the god who cursed her. Helen and Paris, whose relationship sparked the famous war, also appear. These images were not merely decorative. They served to stimulate conversation during banquets, provoking reflection on destiny, choices, and consequences. It was a space where art, philosophy, and social interaction met. But not everyone lived in such luxury. One of the most shocking discoveries was the so-called prison bakery, a space where enslaved people and animals were forced to work in extremely harsh conditions. The environment was enclosed, with small, high windows, little light, and virtually no connection to the outside world. Marks on the floor indicate the paths traveled by blindfolded donkeys and workers who turned mills for endless hours. These marks, far from being natural wear and tear, appear to have been made intentionally to guide movements and prevent accidents. An organization that reveals efficiency, but also a cruel system. This discovery sheds light on an often forgotten reality. The foundation of Roman society was sustained by forced labor. And Pompeii, with all its beauty and sophistication, also carried this dark side. Another fascinating aspect is the election posters found in the city. These records show that local politics were intense and organized. Elections were held regularly, and the right to vote was restricted to free men. Posters, usually painted on the exterior walls of houses, served as advertising. But a recent discovery surprised archaeologists, a poster found inside a residence. This suggests that political campaigns also took place in private settings, with meetings and events organized within homes. This strategy demonstrates how candidates sought support in a direct and personal way. The name of a specific candidate, Aulus Rustius Verus, appears both on a poster and engraved on a millstone found in the same house, a detail that reinforces the connection between politics, economics, and daily life. And perhaps one of the most exciting findings are the drawings made by children. Simple, yet extremely revealing. They depict scenes of gladiators, combat, and hunting, evidence that even the youngest were exposed to the violence of the time. At the same time, there are also more innocent traces, games, drawn hands, simple shapes, a contrast that shows that even in the midst of a society marked by brutality, there was still room for imagination and childhood. These drawings are more than art. They are voices from the past, small fragments of lives that were abruptly interrupted, but which still managed to tell us stories. And perhaps that is Pompeii's greatest strength. It's not just an archaeological site, it's a time capsule. A place where we can see not only great historical events, but also intimate details. What people ate, how they lived, what they believed in, what they feared. Each new excavation reveals something unexpected. An object, a painting, a gesture frozen in time. And with this, we piece together a puzzle that will never be completely finished. Because in the end, the question always remains: how many secrets are still hidden beneath the ashes? Pompeii remains one of history's greatest mysteries, not because of what we already know, but because of everything that remains to be discovered.